Today I'm going to be hardcore Nuzlocking Pokemon Violet with only Paradox Pokemon. I'm Chaotic Meatball here with Beastcoast Pokemon, and this is part 2 of a pair of videos of both versions with their respective paradoxes. If you haven't watched the Scarlet run first, I'd highly suggest doing so over on my channel, link in the description. Anyway, here's a few rules for this challenge on top of the normal ones found in the description. Number 1, I can only add a new team member to the team once every 3 badges. Since there's 18 badges and 7 Paradox Pokemon, excluding Miraidon, I'm allowed to use one every 3 badges, with one being my starter. Number 2, no terastallizing, and lastly, we gotta have some fun. After all, this is my first full playthrough of Violet, and I'm ready to tear into it with these really cool takes on regional variants. Make sure to subscribe to Beastcoast Pokemon, like the video since it helps a lot, and comment down below what other pairs of challenges you'd like to see in the future. With all that said, let's get into our first ever Pokemon Violet challenge. So with this being the second half of a collective challenge, I'm not necessarily going to go in depth where certain items are for my team, and instead just stick with the encounters themselves, the way that I'm going to be EV training them, and their performance in major battles. After receiving my starter, which of course we choose Quaxly due to it being the second best starter behind Snivy in the entire franchise, it's time to roll for our actual starter. We've got a wheel, 7 Pokemon, and a whole host of possibilities. Everything's iron something though, a lot less original than the Scarlet paradoxes, but hey, at least the majority of their designs are sleek and cool, while also containing some of my favorite Pokemon like Tyranitar, Hydreigon, and Gardevoir and Gallade. So, our first wheel spin nets us any minute now. So, you read any good books lately? Oh, it's dope! We've actually spun Iron Thorns, Violet's Paradox Tyranitar. That's my favorite Pokemon, and honestly, I think the future design is taking that spot very quickly. It's like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. You enjoy Godzilla so much, but when you first lay eyes on Mechagodzilla, you just lose your mind and fall in love with it immediately. The best part about it is that Iron Thorns is reportedly the least aggressive Pokemon according to the lore over in the Violet book, which we're not really going to be taking a look at since we're focused on battles here, but that's kind of cool. It makes me a very happy camper. I'll be EV training it in attack and speed, as the Rock Electric type gets immediate access to the Elemental Fangs, as well as Rock Throw for Stab, which should make our first few gyms a piece of cake. Our first rival battle leads to 2 Rock Throws just completely blasting Fuecoco, KOing and letting us work through the beginning of the story, though I will mention it is kind of funny that when Nemona reads that you have hit a super effective move, the AI is automatically programmed to say, oh, water's good against fire, despite the fact that we instead hit it with a rock type move. Funny. Iron Thorns is able to get to level 6 off of this, and because of that, we're going to go straight over to the second rival battle in front of Mesagoza, and despite only being level 6, Iron Thorns can still 2-shot the level 8 Fuecoco with Rock Throw, leading to the Terastallized Pawmi, who's using multiple Thunder Shocks. Despite resisting the attack, the only reason I'm making it through is because of a held Oranberry, as her Thunder Shock is still doing decent damage. Thankfully though, a few Rock Throws is enough to push us over the edge to KO and win once more. Perfect! Now we can hit the Delibird Present store for EV boosting and held items, getting our 3 paths and leading to the badge collecting journey. Off to Cortando we go for our first gym battle against Katie, the Bug-type leader, and I'm sure you can imagine with Fire Fang and Rock Throw how well this ends up going. She leads off with Nimble, which I go for Rock Throw to one-shot KO, doing the same to Tarantula as Teddiursa enters last, terastallizing into the Bug-type and nearly going down to Rock Throw as Fury Cutter lands for minimal damage. All that's left to do is hit Fire Fang, finishing the fight in short order. 1 down, 2 to go until we get our next team member. The Titan Cloth is up next, but not before I grab the TM for Bulldoze off the northern end of the map, since I need something super effective to get through this. After all, Cloth knows Rock Smash and that's super effective against me, so I've got to combat it with my own. I'm able to use 2 Bulldozes here to clear out round 1 before any attacks can land outside of block, leading to round 2 alongside Arvin. Bulldoze does around a quarter now, as Vice Grip does literally nothing, so I'm able to continue spamming it alongside Arvin's Shelter, landing stuff like Water Gun for super effective damage, and eventually allowing for Iron Thorns to pick up the KO with another Bulldoze to win rather easily. The Titans are always the easiest badges to grab though, so I'm not surprised. After about a minute of wasting time to get this nearly useless item, we're ready for our third gym battle against Brassius of Artizone. 10 Sunflora later, and we're raring to go as he leads off with Petal Oil as I go with Iron Thorns and Fire Fang, KOing in one shot as Smoliv comes in second. Fire Fang again does it as Sudowoodo comes in third, terastallizing into the grass typing and using Trailblaze as a super effective attack to boost his speed while I combat it with Fire Fang. I'm gonna need 3 of these, but that's basically impossible due to how much Trailblaze is doing as super effective damage. However, we're able to fix that impossibility by alternating Protect and Leftovers Recovery, an item that we can get from the Delibird Presence store. We're able to get up to half HP by the end of the fight and take it down, KOing with a third and final Fire Fang to get our third badge. Not bad. Now, I don't even really need to get our second team member yet. I'm just gonna go get the 4th badge with Iron Thorns. I know I can get away with it since it's a flying dark type, that being Bombardier. Thunderfang is a clear 2-shot on round 1 of it, leading to round 2 alongside Arvin's Knackley, who is able to just dogpile thanks to the additional rock type, KOing with the 2-on-1 advantage and winning the fight. Sorry, bucko, my friend needs this Herb of Mystica so that he can heal his dog, and I need it so I can get high. Now, with 4 badges under our belt and our 5th needing to come from a Team Starbase, I figured it's about time we go ahead and grab our Iron Hands, which is the Pokemon that we spun on our second wheel spin. The Paradox Hariyama is another electric type, which is a little rough, especially when one of them is already quad weak to ground thanks to that stupid rock subtype that Iron Thorns has, but I guess that is the luck of the draw here. This one I'll be EV training in attack due to the sheer power behind it, but also in HP. Iron Hands' speed is pretty abysmal, so I figure we can just live hits instead of trying and failing to outspeed them. Should be easy enough, especially with good stab moves like Arm Thrust with the loaded dice held item, Thunder Punch, Brick Break, and the like. Now by just dragging our starter into the party, we can go into the Team Skull base and just start wailing on him with my 2 Paradoxes, instead of bringing in new Pokemon just as filler, because I can use Quaxley as the 3rd and just not use it outside of the stupid Auto Battler. Geocomo's the boss and only has 2 Pokemon. Pawniard, which manages to outspeed and hit Aerial Ace on Iron Hands for neutral damage, thank you electric typing, as I KO with Arm Thrust. Second out is Revavroom, the big stupid truck kaiju, and while Arm Thrust is doing good damage to a dark type, it's not as much as I'd like. Metal Sound is dodged as I hit a second one, which manages to hit for all 5, so that's the damage I like to see, and then as Swift hits next turn, a third Arm Thrust does the same, hitting all 5 times. I wasn't even holding the loaded dice item here. I instead went for the Muscle Band for boosting my physical attack power by 10%, but I will take these for absolutely free. Thank you. Another Swift hits as he is in the red, bridging Iron Hands down to a little over half, but 2 more hits of Arm Thrust are more than enough to KO and end the fight single-handedly. I'm gonna need to come up with some more stupid puns having to do with hands, but aside from that, we're 5 badges in, time to get our 6th and add a 3rd team member. The next badge is over in Levincia, and Ayano has the electric badge, which is going to be pretty nice when I have a ground-type attack to ram into whatever she's doing. Though Nimona is always up to be a distraction, so we gotta fight her first. Her team isn't nearly as powerful enough to stand up to my pair of Iron Giants, so I swap out of my lead Iron Thorns, using Sword Stance with Iron Hands 3 times, as her lead Rockruff tries using Rock Throw a few times, barely doing any damage before Arm Thrust is able to sweep through Rockruff, Paw Me, and Crocalore to win the fight. Already getting to the sweeping, I see. Plus Iron Thorns has Dragon Dance, so we're pretty much set for a good time. After playing her legally distinct version of Where's Wally, or Waldo for our American viewers, and taking out her fallen tier trainers, we're ready to plow into Ayano's zone, if you know what I'm saying. I need to shut the heck up. Anyway, she leads off with Wattrell as I go with Iron Thorns, and we're just dragon dancing, baby, 6 times. It does not matter in the slightest. Don't even need Protect, since Spark does so little damage due to our partial electric typing, preventing paralysis as well, so that Rock Tomb can KO Wattrell on the 7th turn, and then we join Bulldoze Nation as we KO Bellybolt and Luxio, leaving just Miss Magius, which terastallizes into the electric type to avoid weakness, but who cares, we're +6 and Rock Tomb is Stab, plus L, plus Ratio, plus you're originally a Ghost type. If there's one thing that I enjoy doing, it's pressing the sweet button. I could just map a command to one button on the controller, and I'm pretty sure I could get the game to do this for me, but I digress. 6 badges, time to jump into our third team member. With the roll of the wheel, we're given Iron Treads, the only actual steel type of the Iron Pokemon. Kinda strange, but this is fine, as our 7th badge is the second Team Star base, and we no longer need Quaxley to fill that spot since Iron Treads is able to do that. However, we're probably not going to be getting too much use out of it due to Mela, the boss, being a Fire-type user. But we've got the Rock-type Iron Thorns here to sit and try setting up Dragon Dance, but boy howdy, is Clear Smog just the worst thing ever. I try setting up with 1, she allows it to go through and uses Flame Wheel, but the instant I try using a second one, the AI reads that I'm going for the attack and immediately uses Clear Smog. It is blatant too, since I'm trying to throw the AI off by attacking and getting Torkoal to red HP, then cycling with Protect to get back over to Dragon Dance to get to +2, but as soon as I click Dragon Dance, she just goes for Clear Smog. Overall though, I'm able to at least be at +1, KOing in 2 shots of Bulldoze by the end as Revavroom comes in second. The fire engine that can't is stomped to dust by 3 Bulldozes here, slowing it down plenty enough for me to KO and win the fight. Easy enough, as are all Team Star bosses, but you know what's even easier? Titans! The Titan Earthworm is our next target of hatred, using Iron Thorns and the ability to use Fire Fang as a way to get around Earth Eater, using it 3 times and burning it somehow, then just taking a bunch of his attacks with no qualms as to how this goes round 1. Alright, well, upon that KO, Iron Thorns is kinda just running in a circle. Why are you running around like you're having a lot of fun? I thought you hated being pulled out of your own time. I'll chalk that up to its cheery disposition compared to the rest of them, as round 2 against Earthworm goes just as easily, using Fire Fang and burning it again before KOing after a few shots. They say that you get out what you put in, but I put Jack All into this high jump and got it immediately, so they must be lying. 8 badges down, 10 to go as our next one lies in buying an old man his seaweed. He forgets his wallet like any respectable middle-aged man would do, runs before checking what he has in his pockets, and can't buy his thing. We buy thing for him, and we can now beat the pulp out of him. Kofu is the water-type leader, and as expected, Iron Hands is perfect for the scenario. Veluza is the lead Pokemon as I go for Swords Dance, taking an Aqua Cutter as I get to +2, but I want to make sure I survive through the entirety of the fight, so I cut it here, going for Thunder Punch to KO, but not before taking a second Aqua Cutter for around 20% of my HP. Also, for some reason, it's just sandstorming out here during this battle, so I'm taking a bunch of extra damage that I wouldn't be otherwise, which is kind of dampening my game plan, but it's fine as Wugtrio comes out and lands a light Water Pulse before Thunder Punch puts it in the ground again. This leaves just Crabominable, who I thought was going to be slower than Iron Hands due to being one of the slowest Pokemon known to man, but clearly I misjudged how much speed had been dropped over the course of this battle. Crabhammer's able to land after he terastallizes into the water typing, bringing Iron Hands down to a very minimal HP, but just enough for me to grab the KO from full with a +2 super effective Thunder Punch, KOing and winning the match. Well, I guess that's what happens when the rest of the team is weak to water. Now, before I grab my 4th team member, I figure we can just take on the 10th badge as it's a Team Starbase and a bunch of poison types. After all, if we jump back to our wheel, we ended up rolling Iron Valiant, and it's a fairy fighting type, not very much useful in terms of fighting against a poison user. Instead, we can kinda plow on through with Iron Treads, using Bulldoze to stomp a mud hole through Stun Tank, Revavroom number 1, and Muck before doing much damage to me as Revavroom number 2, the big truck boyo, comes out and starts using Flame Charge. This is a coverage move that I had not noticed he had, but honestly it's fine as I'm able to outpace the damage ever so slightly, even through a critical hit during this exchange, though that does manage to bring me down to 7 HP by the end, as Bulldoze connects to win us the fight. I figured it would be fine as long as we only got hit by, either 0 or 1 critical hit, and I suppose we were just lucky enough to not roll into the 1 in 16 chance twice in 4 attacks. It was less than a 1% chance of it happening anyway, so it's not like it was a miscalculated risk. Badge 11 is going to be against Larry, the exceptional everyman of Medali, and thankfully after playing through Scarlet exclusively 1 time, I've already memorized the order. Larry's a normal type user and he's starting out with Kamala as I go with Iron Treads, holding a Chesto Berry so that I can set up a defense curl and roll out, hitting 2 shots after consuming the Chesto Berry due to being hit by Yawn, then taking a Sucker Punch before KOing and leading into the Dunsparce. This is unfortunately just shy of a 1-hit KO with hit number 3, so we need hit number 4, and unfortunately that gives him enough time to hit Glare in the process, so we're not out of the woods yet, but we are able to KO and go into his last Pokemon Staraptor with hit 5 on the table, so this could bode well. A whole crowd gathers around excited that Larry's actually gonna do something, only for a giant cannonball to slap the bird out of midair to KO and win the fight. Sorry, friendos. Go get some paid entertainment. I ain't doing this for free. So before we're able to go to our 12th badge and get our 5th team member, I gotta fight Nemona, and by all honesty, she's rather easy to take care of at this point. Her lead Lycanroc can't really do much after I swap into Iron Thorns because I can't change my lead in between the gym and the Nemona fight, alternating Protect and Dragon Dance like we do so much of the time, not getting hit with any criticals, and maintaining our high HP through the onslaughts of bites, finally KOing with Bulldoze as she sends in Gumi. I alternate Protect as she goes for Dragon Pulse, using Bulldoze once more to KO, as we do to Palmo, nearly getting us back to full HP. With Final Fantasy VII, Skeledirge of Cerberus being all that remains, she terastallizes, I Protect to get back to full HP, then use Bulldoze to KO and win the fight. Well, Nemona, it's almost like you lost in front of the top champion against someone whose Pokemon had full HP by the end. Maybe she's not like Goku at all. Turns out she's just Krillin and getting her bum blasted all over the place. Phrasing. Anyway, we're able to head on over to our next gym battle against Rime, facing off against Moist Critical Sledge beforehand. And let me just point out that he says the thing. You know, the thing.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Now with the trainers out of the way, Rime's ready for a fight, and so am I, leading Thorns and Valiant against her Mimikyu and Bayonet due to my super effective attacks from both, Bite from Thorns and Hex from Valiant respectively. Since sadly we can't get the TM for Shadow Ball until we win this fight, so Hex is all that we have access to. I knock out the Disguise with a Dazzling Gleam, doing about half to Bayonet in the process, as well as seeing Iron Thorns set up Dragon Dance, boosting the power of Bite a bit, but seeing Rime get the boost of speed on the turn led me to believe that I need to get the offense going faster if I want to get the attack boost from this fight. So after taking double Shadow Sneak, one to each of my Pokemon, we're able to hit Mimikyu with Iron Thorns' Bite for a little over half, finishing both off with Valiant's Dazzling Gleam for the double down. We do get the stat boost of attack and special attack off of that as she sends in her own Ghost Terra Toxtricity, as well as Houndstone, with, of course, Thorns' Bite and Valiant's Hex respectively being able to KO both, winning me the fight in very short order. Wow, that was a lot easier than the Scarlet version of this fight. Double battles sure can be either a tough fight from underneath because of how much is coming at you at the same time, or an absolute squash match depending on those type matchups. So, with our 5th team member being available due to badge 12 being obtained, we roll the wheel and receive Iron Bundle, the Paradox Delibird. Very interesting choice for them to redesign. This is an Ice-Water type and a huge boon to our team thanks to the unique typing that we haven't had access to yet. Boasting a super high special attack and speed, this should be the perfect recipient for Calm Mind. But it can't learn Calm Mind. And none of my team can learn Baton Pass, and the only other one that can learn Calm Mind is Iron Valiant. That is a bit demoralizing, especially when looking ahead at Iron Moth and Iron Jugulus's movesets, as neither can learn either move, so we're kinda boned when it comes to using Iron Bundle. Then again, it's probably not smart to write off this really nice typing sheerly because it doesn't have an auto-win button, but we will have to, actually be intelligent while using it, rather than, I don't know, Unga Bunga Water Pulse and Freeze Dry Go Burr. I would have liked to have that, but we can't always have what we want. That said, we're ready to challenge our next gym leader, but not before fighting Nemona once more. The use of Iron Bundle is pretty much just for Lycanroc here, Water Pulsing to get the KO as it now knows Sand Attack, so it isn't exactly the smartest thing to set up against. Second is Palmet, which we have a held Cherry Berry in order to heal paralysis from, but frankly it's needless as Freeze Dry only does a little over half, before I swap out into Iron Hands on the second Thunder Wave to blanket with the electric typing and start setting up Swords Dance. We take 3 sparks in the process as we set up 3 Swords Dance, taking barely any damage as we're alternating with Protect to get us back up to full HP, before KOing with Arm Thrust. Now, in case you're wondering why we haven't replaced this move yet, it's purely for the rare Sturdy Pokemon. I can sometimes get by without leftovers due to how bulky Iron Hands is, and because of that and using the loaded dice as the held item to guarantee 4, but possibly get 5 hits, it's purely just to knock those out. Other than that, Sliggoo's a KO with Arm Thrust, and Skeledirge is able to do some decent damage with a Fire Terra boosted Torch Song, but it's not exactly going to save her from a +6 Thunder Punch to the face to win me the fight. Now, I wanted to do this fight because her highest level Pokemon is 43, whereas both the next Titan and the Gym Leader are both at 45, so let's go take out that Titan Iron Tread since we can get away with being a little lower level. Funnily enough, it's a one-shot with Valiant's Aura Sphere during round 1, but boy, did we just get saved by the bell during round 2. See, I go for Protect in hopes that Arvin's Scovillain will go for a Fire-type attack on Iron Treads, so that it does do enough damage so that Iron Treads will be KO'd by an Aura Sphere on the follow-up. Unfortunately, he wastes time with Scary Face as I block a Rapid Spin, so we're kinda just sitting here in a stalemate. We're barely unable to KO with an Aura Sphere Fire Fang combo, but if it weren't for that burn having Iron Treads' attack off of the Fire Fang, Valiant would not be standing here anymore because it would have gone down to an Iron Head. That would have been terrible too, seeing as Valiant is our kind of only chance at a special sweeper on the team, but with a second Aura Sphere, Iron Treads is down for the count and we're given our 13 badged, going unpunished because it wasn't a range and the game refuses to do anything to me unless I take a risk on a range for some reason. Alright, now we can go back to the Alfornata gym so that we can fight Tulip, as that's where we were to fight Nemona beforehand. Everything's made rather easier thanks to Iron Thorns having great physical defense against her lead Farigiraf, using physical moves like Zen Headbutt and Crunch to do damage, while I alternate Protect and Dragon Dance to maximize leftovers healing. I'm kind of running out of quips to do while we're just sitting here and seeing setup sweeps, but I don't know, use your imagination to see what it looks like as Iron Thorns just sits here menacingly for like 12 turns, building up his power as you try setting up Reflect to fight against it, only to realize that, dang, I'm gonna pass away. That sucks, before he bites your head off. Thunderfang to Farigiraf, Bulldoze to Gardevoir as Reflect elapses, Bulldoze to Espathra, and Bulldoze to the Psychic Terra Florges wins us the fight. You don't realize how much joy it brings me to see my favorite Pokemon just absolutely go to Pound Town on Gardevoir and company. Boy, I really need to work on that word choice, holy. Alright, 14 down, 4 to go as the last gym leader ends up being the 15th level cap, forcing us to play the worst level of 1080 snowboarding this side of the N64 controller before we can start this shindig. Grisha starts off with Frostmoth as "Stop me if you've seen this combo before!" We're protecting, we're dragon dancing, and we're only getting 3 of them up because a critical blizzard nearly ruins our day by nearly one-shotting us. Thankfully, this is more than enough to ensure Tailwind is never a problem as it peters out rather quickly, and +3 for a physical attacking machine is plenty enough for Thunderfang to tear through Frostmoth, Bulldoze to Beartic, Bulldoze to Satitan, and Thunderfang to Altaria out of primal fear that, despite being terastallized into the Ice type, will not be hit by Bulldoze exclusively because the game dislikes me for trying to beat it to hell and back, and not because of any logical explanation whatsoever, but this wins me the fight nonetheless. I mean, hey, at least I didn't have to deal with missing 2 Thunderfangs out of 3 uses like I did during one of the Alfornata gym trainers. Sheesh. 3 more badges to go, which means we can add a new team member to the team. However, I'll be rolling for it following our battle with Ortega since this should be sealed up from the word go. He's leading with Azumarill as I go with Iron Thorns, attempting to one-shot with Thunderfang, though we barely miss it as Aqua Tail lands for over half damage. All good though, as we can alternate with Protect to get some HP back from leftovers, then use the 100% accurate Bulldoze to finish it off, leading to Wigglytuff. Now this is the definition of stall tactics. I'm sitting here using Dragon Dance against Charm, a non-winning game, but also trying to stall the 5 Gyro Ball power points so that I can bring in one of my other Pokemon, but this just keeps going back and forth. No one's keeping score, yada yada. Eventually, I get to the point that I swap out into Iron Treads and just start going for Iron Head because it's super effective. It should do something. And sure enough, it one-shots Wigglytuff before it gets the chance to use Charm, then two-shots Dash Bund as Baby Doll Eyes hits on the first turn thanks to priority. Last out is Revavroom, the Ruckbob Starmobile? I have no idea how to pronounce that, but regardless, I'm able to beat its face in most of the way with Iron Treads and Iron Head, eventually getting to the point where Confuse Ray becomes a threat, so I need to swap back into Iron Thorns to carry it over the finish line, using Bulldoze, getting Confuse Ray'd, but the last attack manages to hit through said confusion, KOing and winning the fight. 2 more badges to go. The 17th badge is of course the last Team Starbase, but I figure we can roll our encounter now. Thankfully, we managed to get Iron Jugulis rather than Iron Moth. Kinda funny that both variants of Volcarona ended up being last to join the team, but Iron Jugulis as a flying type gives me quite the additional bit of ammunition against the fighting type Starbase. Thankfully though, I kinda really don't need it starting out as I'm going with Iron Valiant against Ares' lead Toxicroak. I had the TM for Psybeam laying around, and I figured that's plenty enough to KO the quad-weak Toxicroak, as Passimian enters second and dies to Dazzling Gleam. Third out is Annihilate, which I figured would be a one-shot with Dazzling Gleam, but turns out it's just barely not, hitting for a third with Close Combat, nowhere near enough to upset my plans for KOing next turn with a Shadow Ball. Fourth out is Lucario, the perfect target for Aura Sphere. How's the taste of your own medicine feeling going down your gullet? Last out is Revavroom, and it's really easy to take down, though I do underestimate the strength of Spin Out. See, I hit Dazzling Gleam for over half as she goes for Shift Gear, which drastically increases speed, or whichever one is +2, I think drastically is +3 now that I think about it. Either way, this increases her speed. I'm not too worried, and I just go for another Dazzling Gleam, but that's almost my undoing as I see Spin Out nearly KO Iron Valiant. Jeez, what is it with Valiant and near-death scenarios today? But at least this is the end of the battle following the second Dazzling Gleam. Awesome. All that's left is the Titan Dondozo, Tatsugiri, which are made rather obsolete thanks to Iron Hands using Sword Stance and Thunder Punch for the job, taking out both rounds of Dondozo and the third round with Tatsugiri in short order. 18 badges obtained? Let's go ahead and finish up these 3 stories. So of course, we have to take on Director Clavel before interrupting that story to take on the League. Gotta love how wishy-washy these level caps are, but they shouldn't be a big deal. I decided to go in at level 60 just to make sure everything remains under the cap of 63 for the post-League fights, though even now this may be too high. Clavel leads with Oranguru, a quite frankly stupid start against my Jugulis, as I have already won thanks to our access to Workup. I had mistakenly stated earlier that Iron Valiant would be our only special sweeper, but with Jugulis having access to Workup, we can boost our special attack, giving us a second special sweeper and setting up 3 of them as, well, we get yawned and we gotta sit here for a little bit. I sure do love just sitting here doing nothing. We're able to survive through the cavalcade of useless moves, setting up our 3rd Workup as we wake up, taking out Oranguru with Dark Pulse, Abomasnow with Air Slash following Snow Warning, setting up Snow? I noticed this throughout the fight, but Iron Jugulis was just not taking any damage from Hail. Did they just get rid of the damage that this does? I mean, I'm fine with Sandstorm being the only weather condition that inflicts damage. It just seems like a strange change to make 6 generations after they initially introduced it. Anyway, Gyarados falls to Dark Pulse, Houndoom falls down to Protect, alternating with Air Slash, and Poltegeist goes down to Dark Pulse as his last Pokemon, Meowscarada, enters the field. Now this is the only one that manages to avoid any of my attacks thanks to that stupid 95% accuracy of Air Slash, hitting Play Rough for well over half as I hesitate and think of swapping out here. I decide to take the risk of the 95% accuracy again, thankfully hitting and KOing to win the fight. You know I'm not in the business of thinking when I'm like, yeah, I could swap out, but I have a 95% chance to where I don't have to think. I'm gonna bet on that. League time, and these battles should line up rather well against my team's typings. First up, Rika and the ground types. She leads off with a Whiscash as I go with Iron Valiant, going for Calm Mind twice as she goes for Future Sight and Muddy Water. I didn't want to take up too much of a risk here, going for more Calm Minds as opposed to Muddy Waters landing since that can lower my accuracy, but I did want to set up enough special defense to survive a Future Sight, since that's super effective against this fairy fighting type. Thankfully, this is plenty enough for me to KO with the newly learned Moonblast at +2, taking the future sight for around half damage as Camerupt enters second. Aurasphere blasts the camel into outer space as Donphan enters third, but boy howdy is that sturdy ability putting a very big damper on my plans. I'm forced to swap into Iron Treads to avoid the poison jab here with immunity, using Stomping Tantrum to break sturdy and do around a third as Earthquake from the opponent nearly puts Treads in the mud. Thankfully, we can just go back into our flying type Iron Jugulus, using Dark Pulse to finish off Donphan as well as Dugtrio, leaving just Clodsire as the last Pokemon. Now, the only thing he can hit me with here, due to being a dark flying type, is Toxic, and we can just swap out of that before it KOs, so we're set to attack with Dark Pulse, flinching on the first one and dodging Toxic after the second one, KOing with the third and final Dark Pulse to win the fight. Simple and easy, just like I like my first League fights. Things get a little more heated against Poppy though, starting Caparaja as I go with Iron Hands, setting up Swords Dance once as Stealth Rock comes down, doing it once more as Play Rough lands for around a third. From here, we're set to Protect Stall for a turn, then KO with a 2-hit Arm Thrust to bring it down. Second out is Bronzong, no surprises there, it's super effective, and of course Arm Thrust would KO with 3 shots, but it only gets 2. This allows for Zen Headbutt to land for some decent damage, though of course Iron Hands' defense is pretty high, so it's not that big of a deal. I mean, that and it's a Bronzong, it's not really going to be doing damage much at all. We're able to take it out, and third out is Corviknight, and despite using Brave Bird, the electric typing softens the blow quite a bit, KOing with the follow-up Thunder Punch as Magnezone enters fourth. Ah, the Pokemon that I needed Arm Thrust for! We're able to break through that sturdy and KO in 2 shots, leading to our last Pokemon in Tinkaton. This terastallizes into the Steel typing, but no one's stopping a +4 attack Iron Hands, as Arm Thrust is more than enough to KO in 2 shots to win the fight. 2 down, 2 to go as Larry enters the fold once more with his flying types, but frankly he's going to need a lot more than that if he hopes to even beat me. Especially because his lead Tropius sure has Air Slash, but his AI is prioritizing Sunny Day and Solar Beam, making it free for me to set up with Iron Valiant and 2 Calm Minds, sweeping the team with Moonblasts to Tropius, Staraptor, Altaria, Oricorio, and the Flying Terra Flamigo to win the fight. Sheesh, this was even worse than the Iron Treads rollout sweep there, bud. Last up is Hassel, and we're going to make sure that we're a hassle to his team as we lead Valiant against his Noivern, setting up exactly 1 Calm Mind before sweeping. Moonblast takes out Noivern, Psychic takes out Dragalge, and Moonblasts for everybody else. Haxorus, Flapple, and Baxcalibur are more than enough to just immediately die and let me go to the champion. Those last 2 went even easier than the first 2, but what about Geeta? Well, oddly enough, I think she's the first trainer in the game that I actually have to think about pivoting in my attacks. I'll be leading Jugulus here against her Spathra, just so I can get a clean one-shot with Dark Pulse before she has the chance to do anything, putting me up 6-5. Second out is King Gambit, and Stone Edge is very threatening for a flying type here, so I swap out into Iron Thorns for the attempted KO with Earthquake after resisting Stone Edge, which is a 2-shot, but Katao Cleave is just such a strong move that it has, that it brings Iron Thorns nearly to the red as the second Earthquake manages to get the KO. Now third up is Avalugg, and I think my brain was starting to overthink this one. I'm trying to stall out her power points for Earthquake by swapping in between Jugulus and Iron Hands, doing a great job absorbing damage from the subsequent avalanches that come through, and laying the groundwork for me to set up later with Swords Dance, which is exactly what I need to do to facilitate a late game sweep, but a few cracks start to show. First of all, Arm Thrust needs to hit a high range to get the KO in 2 hits, otherwise I need 3 even at +6. This ends up, of course, being the bane of me as I take double damage from an avalanche after only hitting twice, bringing Iron Hands down to around 2/3 after leftovers, with Go-Goat entering 4th. Now here comes the second issue. Due to my stupidity, I continually mix up how Foul Play and Play Rough work, with the former measuring its damage based on the target's attack stat, and the latter just having the chance to lower the target's attack by 10%. Here, I of course get it mixed up, despite encountering the move earlier in the run, and swap out Iron Hands for Bundle as I expect to see it. It does less than 1/3 to Iron Bundle, opening it up to an easy KO with Ice Beam. Sweet, and with Veluza out next, we can get another easy KO with the super effective Freeze Dry. Last out is Glimora, and I figure we can get the KO with Water Pulse, but I'm not too familiar with the base stats of the new Pokemon. I kinda just clicked Water Pulse and hoped for the best, but we missed the KO by a little bit, getting KO'd on the Crackback with a Sludge Wave. Little embarrassing, probably should have looked that up, but that's fine as we have Iron Moth to replace it once this battle is over. From here we can bring in Iron Treads, KOing with a Stomping Tantrum to end this and become a champion. With that, we're clear with the league, but not necessarily with all 3 storylines. We still have 4 fights to go before we reach the end of the game, so here goes something. First up, I'm choosing to go against Arvin, boxing Iron Valiant so that we don't overlevel it for Penny straight afterwards, and this ends up being the right decision. We're able to lead with Iron Jugulis against his Greedent, setting up 2 workups against 2 of his Body Slams, and thankfully not getting paralyzed by that 30% chance as I Protect Buffer, beginning the sweep. Protect then Dark Pulse is enough to KO Greedent, doing the same to Garganacil out second. Jugulis is back near full HP by this point, but it's clear that we're gonna overlevel during this fight. I take the time to take out Scovillain with Air Slash as well as Toedscruel, but that's enough to push us to level 64, so we're forced to swap out with 2 Pokemon left. The first of these is Cloyster, and that kind of makes me realize that I can swap into Iron Hands, set up Swords Dance, and Protect Buffer because both Pokemon are weak to both attacks that Iron Hands has. Thunder Punch for Cloyster, and then Arm Thrust for Mastiff. Or would be if we hadn't learned Close Combat right at level 63. I figure now that we don't have to deal with any more sturdy Pokemon on boss fights, that we're clear to give Iron Hands a much better fighting type move because of it. Now for the other level 63 cap fight, Penny. We've swapped Jugulis out for Valiant here, giving it back Aura Sphere for this fight, as I value that stab attack over the Psychic slot. We're able to set up 3 Calm Minds against her lead Umbreon, taking 2 Baby Doll Eyes that lowers physical attack, not sure why she decided to go for that, and a Psychic from the lead before the sweep. Moonblast to Umbreon, Aura Sphere to Flareon, Moonblasts to Vaporeon, Jolteon, and Leafeon, leaving just Sylveon. Now this thing is pretty bulky, surviving a +3 Moonblast at a little under half as she goes with her own, taking advantage of my fighting typing, which makes it super effective. This doesn't do enough though, as it only does around half, but then my second Moonblast is able to fire off, get the KO, and the easy win. Alright bud, I'm gonna need you to drag you down into the middle of the region to teach you how to beat up these robots I'm using. They're pretty cool, and they're kinda harmless once you understand what they do. But give me a second, I just have to go beat up Nemona real quick. Now Nemona's a little more of a beast than the other 2, and that's simply because I can't sweep her with just 1 Pokemon. Her lead Lycanroc I can start against with Iron Hands, setting up 3 Swords Dance and alternating Protect, but only against super effective Drill Runs, which in and of themselves do a ton of damage. However, I'm able to avoid a cycle of this due to her using Stealth Rock on a non-Protect turn, allowing me to nearly fully heal from the first Drill Run, only taking a second as Thunder Punch lands to KO, bringing in Earthworm next. Earthquake lands following a Protect cycle for some more super effective damage, but Thunder Punch on the Crackback takes care of business, leading to Dunsparce. Once again, we're faced with a super effective Ground-type move in Drill Run as we go for Protect, but oddly enough, Nemona chooses to go for Coil next turn on a non-Protect turn, saving me even more HP as I'm still able to KO with Thunder Punch following the slight defense increase. 3 down, 3 to go as Palmet enters 4th, and while I can't Thunder Punch this due to Volt Absorb, I can block with Protect, take a close combat, and then dish out my own to KO. 4 are down, but this is where I have to draw the line as Goodra's out 5th and I cannot survive any of these special attacks at this HP. So after protecting for the last bit of HP recovery and to confirm what move Nemona will use, I see it's Dragon Pulse, so I swap accordingly to Iron Valiant. From here, we can set up a Calm Mind to get through her Sludge Bomb, which is normally super effective, KOing on the Crackback with a Moonblast, leaving just Skeledirge. I can't survive an attack from here, I'm likely not going to KO, so we need to switch. I choose to bring in Iron Moth first, taking a quarter from Stealth Rock while also being hard by Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, not the move I was predicting. However, this baits Earth Power due to being quite effective. So goodbye Iron Moth, you will never be seen again as we swap into Iron Jugulis, taking this time to use Dark Pulse for some good damage. Unfortunately, this is just barely outside of the wheelhouse for a 2-shot, and because we don't get a flinch on either Dark Pulse, we need to sacrifice Jugulis to come through at the end with Valiant, using Shadow Ball to KO and win the fight. Jeez, 2 deaths? Now I don't even have a full team going into the AI Turo fight. However, That's not even a problem. After delving into the depths of the Area Zero and getting to this fight here, I realized that, oh, you're leading with Iron Moth? Well, I guess you lose, as I can just lead with Iron Thorns to wall against most of his attacks. Sadly, this takes a turn for the worst on literally turn 1 as he gets a critical with Sludge Wave, doing nearly half damage as I set up my first Dragon Dance. Thankfully, this only takes our amount of Dragon Rages usable from 5 to 4, and 4 is still enough, though it's gotta get rather close due to how little HP Iron Thorns has by the end of the setup. From here, we can Earthquake Iron Moth, alternate Protect, then blast the Mirror Iron Thorns with a critical Earthquake. Serves you right for using my favorite Pokemon for no good. Third is Iron Hands, another Pokemon weak to ground, so Earthquake is the perfect choice. And out comes the ones weak to Electric, as Iron Bundle is Ice Water, one-shot by Thunderfang, and Iron Jugulus is Dark Flying, once again one-shot by Thunderfang. Last out is Iron Valiant, and I see you're using the correct ace, but not the correct side of the attack stat, as this one's got physical attacks. Thankfully, this doesn't matter, as alternating Protect and outspeeding because of Dragon Dance, Earthquake ends his existence once and for all, ending the run effectively. Well, kind of. We still have that ceremonial Miraidon mirror match as they both activate their Hard-On engines, Hadron engines. They couldn't have named that anything else, huh? Well, with AI Tuco taken care of and sent back to Mexico, we're once again victorious with our quest through the Paldea region, albeit with 2 more deaths than was really necessary if I had put in just a wee bit more thought. However, the Paradox Pokemon in Violet are so much stronger than the ones in Scarlet, and I felt like there was a lot less challenge here due to the diversity of typings and sheer access to setup moves. Dragon Dance, Work Up, Calm Mind, and Swords Dance were all seen on this team, and there were only 7 different Pokemon to choose from. There's so many different moves on the team that I had access to where I was just resorting to throwing out whoever could survive the lead's onslaught and just sweep from there. And I'm glad it worked out in the end. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to Beastcoast Pokemon, as well as my individual channel Chaotic Meatball if you somehow made it to the end of this without watching the Scarlet video first. And again, leave a comment below telling us what other challenges you want to see. Anyway, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.